Let's tell the truth about corporate tech. These companies are not actually scared of AI. They're not losing sleep because automation exists. They're not panicking because large language models can write code. They love that. What they're scared of is people like me, people who understand the stack deeply enough to stop depending on them, people who can build independently, people who can automate their own labor, people who can own the rails instead of renting access to them. That's what scares them, not the machine, the engineer who knows how to use it without asking permission. Corporate leadership keeps acting like AI is some external storm they're bravely trying to navigate. That's nonsense. Most corporations don't fear AI, they see AI as leverage, a way to reduce headcount, a way to standardize output, a way to squeeze more work out of fewer people, a way to monitor, rank, template, and compress labor. That's why the messaging always sounds fake. They'll tell workers AI is here to help you. But the boardroom translation is usually how do we get the same or more output with less dependence on expensive humans? That's the real conversation. So no, they're not scared of AI. They want AI under management. They want automation inside the fence. They want all the upside of machine intelligence without giving workers any additional freedom. Here's what they do fear. They fear an engineer who realizes the old path is optional. An engineer who can use AI to accelerate research, coding, testing, documentation, and deployment. An engineer who can use cloud infrastructure to ship globally. An engineer who understands automation well enough to replace repetitive coordination labor. An engineer who understands Web3 well enough to think in ownership, not just employment. An engineer who can turn raw skill into products, systems, and distribution. That kind of person is a problem for the traditional corporate model because now the company is no longer the sole source of legitimacy. It's not the sole source of tooling. It is not the sole source of distribution. It is not even the sole source of income. That's the nightmare. Not AI replacing workers, workers becoming too powerful to contain. I've seen this up close. In my case, the lesson was simple. When corporations encounter unusual talent under pressure, they often misread it completely. Instead of investing in talent, they fall back on bureaucracy. Instead of building with people, they manage around them. Instead of developing upside, they weaponize process. Sometimes that means management layers. Sometimes that means politics. Sometimes that means HR. And that's what I mean when I say this is bigger than one company because CBS is not uniquely broken here. It's just a case study in a broader corporate pattern. When a system becomes too rigid, it stops recognizing non traditional value. It sees friction where it should see signal. It sees a human being under strain and thinks risk instead of asking whether they're looking at someone who could become a serious asset if properly backed. That's institutional incompetence, and it's expensive because when you mishandle high agency technical people, you don't just lose an employee, you create a future competitor. That may be even more direct. A lot of companies use HR like a damage control weapon instead of a talent strategy. That's the disease. The moment somebody becomes inconvenient, politically awkward, non-traditional, or difficult to package neatly, the instinct is not how do we cultivate this person? It's how do we contain this person? That mindset is poison in the period of technological transition because we are entering an era where one high agency engineer with AI can do the work of small teams in certain contexts. And instead of recognizing that and building around it, many companies will do what big companies always do. They will overmanage, underinvest, and create the exact conditions that push builders out the door, which is why so many of the most dangerous people in tech are no longer trying to climb the ladder, they're building outside the building. This is the part corporate leadership still doesn't fully understand. AI changes the economics of execution. If I can compress research time, generate system drafts, accelerate coding, automate documentation, and reduce repetitive operations, and connect tools through agents and workflows, then my ability to produce value is no longer tied to old staffing assumptions. That matters because the historical advantage of large companies was coordination. They had the people, the process, the approvals, the distribution, and the infrastructure. But now, a lot of that coordination is becoming software. A lot of that overhead is becoming optional. A lot of that enterprise necessity is becoming exposed as organizational drag. And when you combine AI with cloud infrastructure, automation, and product skill, one person can move with the level of speed that used to require departments. Not that's not hype. That's the direction of economics that the economics are moving, which means the real divide in tech isn't going to be coder versus non-coder. It's going to be dependent builder versus independent builder. The people who still need permission for everything are going to get trapped. The people who can design, ship, automate, and own are going to create the next layer. Now, add Web3 to the mix. This is where corporate discomfort turns into real strategic fear because Web3 is not just some speculative casino to me, it represents a more dangerous idea: ownership outside legacy institutions. Wallets, smart contracts, programmable value, treasury coordination, digital identity that doesn't need a centralized gatekeeper to bless it. And once workers and builders understand that deeply, they start seeing the world differently. They stop asking, how do I get access? And start asking, how do I build rails that I control? That shift matters more than most executives realize because once people understand how to build with AI and own the decentralized infrastructure, the old model starts looking weak. Now the company isn't your only source of capital formation. It isn't your only source of leverage. It isn't your only source of coordination. That's why decentralized ownership is threatening, not because every token is meaningful, but because the underlying logic challenges the dependency model itself. So when I say I'm building now, I mean something very specific. I'm building in the direction of systems that reduce dependence on gatekeepers, AI-powered workflows, automation layers, blockchain-backed ownership models, agent-driven execution, products and infrastructure that give builders, workers, and businesses more autonomy. And that's what makes this personal because the same type of corporate thinking that tried to manage me as a problem is exactly the kind of thinking that will get disrupted the hardest. They had the chance to invest in talent, they chose bureaucracy. They had the chance to recognize what was emerging, they chose control. Now I'm building tech that will force businesses like that to evolve, whether they want to or not. So, no, corporate tech is not scared of AI. That part is propaganda. What it's scared of is loss of control, loss of dependency, loss of monopoly over legitimacy, infrastructure, and opportunity. It's scared of workers who become owners. It's scared of engineers who become operators. It's scared of builders who no longer need permission. And people like me sit right in the middle of that shift. I've seen the gig economy side. I've seen the corporate side. I've seen how institutions mismanage human upside. And now I'm on the other side building systems that make the old arrogance look outdated. That's the truth. They do not fear AI, they fear what happens when people like us get AI, automation, infrastructure, and ownership in the same hand.